To be perfectly honest with you, I didn't even know that there was like a certain way that you could pay off debt for the longest time while I was trying to navigate paying off debt. Hi friends, welcome back to the Avocado Toast Budget. If you're new here, my name is Lexa, and today we are going over the difference between the debt snowball and the debt avalanche. If you have looked at all into trying to pay off debt and what the best way to pay off debt is, you have probably heard of one or both of these concepts. These are the two main methods to paying off your debt and approaching how you are going to pay off your debt. There might be more, but honestly, if there are, I haven't heard of them. There is a lot of debate in the personal finance space of which one is better. So we are going to break down in this video the difference between both, the pros and cons, and which one you should use to pay off your debt. So if you want to get started tackling your debt and finally be debt-free, this is the video for you. Let's go ahead and get into it. Starting right off with the debt snowball. The debt snowball was made very popular by Dave Ramsey, someone who, if you've been on my page, you have probably heard of. And honestly, whether you're in the personal finance space or not, you've probably also heard of him. I don't think he invented this. I think he just kind of popularized it and made it more well-known. In short, the debt snowball is focused on paying off the smallest debt first, making minimum payments on all of your other debt, and only focusing your extra money on that smallest debt until it's paid off. Once that one is paid off, then you just keep going down the list from your smallest to your largest debt. This is based primarily off of human behavior and the idea that we need that instant or quick gratification to stick to paying off debt. So the idea here is that you don't worry about your interest rate, you don't worry about which debt is costing you the most money, you are just focused on getting that quick win. That way you are motivated to keep going and you stick with it. Now you probably know that I have my fair share of issues with Dave Ramsey, but the debt snowball I actually see the validity in, and I think that it can be an awesome method for those of you that are new to paying off debt, don't feel super motivated or worried about actually sticking to a debt payoff process. Before we break down the pros and cons, let's go ahead and go through step by step how to use the debt snowball. Step 1, list out your debts from smallest to biggest. This can include things like your student loans or your mortgage if those are included in your debt payoff goals, but they don't have to be. Step 2, list out the minimum payments for each one of your debts. Basically, this is the minimum the loan provider requires you to pay each month to stay in good standing. With things like a personal loan, a car loan, student loans, a mortgage, that's probably just what you've been paying on a month-to-month basis. But if you're looking at credit card debts, this might be different than what you've been paying month to month, and it can fluctuate depending on how much you have on your credit card at any given point in time. But it should tell you on the app. If you don't have the app, definitely get the app for your credit cards. But if you can't find it there, just look at your statements. It will tell you how much is due every month for your minimum payment. Step number 3 is to make sure that you are paying the minimum payment on all of your loans. This ensures that you stay in good standing, your credit score stays all right, and you're not going to have any debt go into collections or debt collectors looking for you, wondering why you're not making payments on your debts. Step 4 is to throw any extra money that you have at the smallest debt. If you are looking at this from the traditional Dave Ramsey point of view, he will tell you to throw any extra money that you have toward that debt to try to achieve debt freedom as quickly as possible. But I want you to know that's not the only option. Just throw whatever is realistic. It is going to vary person to person how much you want to put toward your debts, and make sure that whatever it is realistic and works for you. If you want to pay off debt ASAP, then go full force, throw any extra money that you have toward there after covering all of your expenses, minimum payments, and savings goals. But if you still want to afford the small day-to-day luxuries in life, that is totally okay for you to do. Step number 5 is to repeat this process until you have paid off that first debt. Cross off that smallest debt once the balance is at 0. Also, make sure to reward yourself, throw yourself a little party, because that is a big deal. Step 6 is where we start to get into the snowball effect. The whole idea behind the debt snowball is that it's like a snowball rolling down a hill. As it rolls, it collects more snow, making the snowball bigger and bigger. So that extra money you were throwing at debt number 1 is considered to be your snowball payment. So if you are putting $100 toward your debt number 1, even though that's no longer a thing, you are going to snowball that $100 onto debt number 2, meaning you are going to add that $100 on top of whatever minimum payment you were already making on debt 2. I'll pop up an example here because I feel like the visual just helps explain it so much more than I could speaking about it to you. But basically, instead of looking at it as, oh, hey, I've paid off one debt, now I can put less money toward debt every month, you are going to continue putting the same amount every month and just moving it along down the row to the next debt that you owe. And you are just going to continue to repeat this process until all of your debt is paid off. Continuing to take what you were paying from debt 1, adding it on to debt 2 until debt 2 is paid off, taking what you were paying on debt 2, adding it on to debt 3's minimum payment until that's paid off, so on and so forth. Keep in mind with the debt snowball, there is a chance that you are going to pay more in interest over time. Since you're not worrying about the debt with the highest interest, you're only focusing on which debt is the smallest to the largest and going down the list from there. This might mean that you are paying off a debt with really low interest first, while your debt with higher interest is still accumulating a lot of interest since you're not attacking that one yet. But in my opinion, if doing this method means that you're going to stick to paying off your debt, then go for it. A debt that takes longer to pay off is better than a debt that's never paid off. Also with the debt snowball, keep in mind that you're going to see a lot of wins in the beginning, especially if you have a lot of smaller debts. But as you move down the list, if you have bigger debts or if you're including things like a lot of student loans or a mortgage, it is going to take you a lot longer to pay those off than it did at the beginning. But now that we've looked at the debt snowball, let's move forward and look at the debt avalanche. With the debt avalanche, you are prioritizing paying off the debt with the highest interest rate first. So with the debt snowball, you're looking at the debt that is smallest. Debt avalanche, you're looking at the debt with the highest interest. But it is very similar to the debt snowball in pretty much every other way. The real main difference between these two is which debts are you targeting in which order. The debt avalanche is a great method from a mathematical standpoint, because if you are targeting the debt with the highest interest rate first, that means you're knocking it out first. And therefore, if you are putting more toward that debt at the beginning, you are going to pay less in interest over time. And paying less in interest means that in theory, you also will pay off your debt faster. So you might be thinking, then why would anyone use any other method? And to that I would say, fair. But the one major drawback to this method is that if the debt with the highest interest is also the debt that you have that is the largest, it might take you a long time to pay off that first debt, which means you have a bigger chance of losing momentum, deciding it's not worth it because you haven't seen any real results yet. And again, a debt that is paid off but takes longer is better than a debt that is never paid off. The steps for the debt avalanche are pretty much exactly the same as the steps for the debt snowball, so I'm just going to have them up here on the screen for you. The only difference is, of course, the debt that you are going to target. So with the debt avalanche, you want to write out all of your debts from the debt with the highest interest to the debt with the lowest interest, and tackle high interest to low interest down the list. So if you're wondering which one of these is best for you, ultimately, both of them have their pros and cons, and in my eyes, it really just depends on the kind of person that you are and what you are motivated by. If you know you're the kind of person that might not stick to your debt payoff goals and you really do need that reinforcement and those wins at the beginning, then I would go with the debt snowball. It might mean that you pay a little bit more in interest over time, but if it means that you're working through it, then it's totally worth it. However, if you're someone who is really motivated by the idea of paying off debt as quickly as possible and or paying the least amount of money in interest, then the debt avalanche might be the best method for you. I also think it's important for you to look at your debts and see if it really makes a difference between the two. Because if your smallest debt is also the debt with the highest interest, then really you're doing both the debt snowball and the debt avalanche at the same time. Also keep in mind, you are not forced to abide by any of these methods. So if you start one and realize it's not working for you, feel free to just switch to the other one. It is all about making a budget and debt payoff plan that actually works for you in your life. You are not married to any of them. You absolutely can change your mind. If you're curious what it would look like to do the debt avalanche versus the debt snowball for your specific debts, you can click the debt calculator that I have down below and it will show you the difference for you. It'll show you how much more you might be paying in interest in one over the other and how much longer it might take you. If there's a big difference in one over the other, that might motivate you to decide to do the debt avalanche over the debt snowball. However, if there's not really that much of a difference, then it gives you some options to decide which one is better for you and which one you actually think that you'll stick to. I really hope that this helped for you to make a decision on how you want to pay off your debts. If you have any questions, leave me a comment down below. And if you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a big thumbs up. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm, helps boost this video to the top. That way more people can find this content. And I will see you all next time. Bye.